that what you mean when you mean third world countries, those 19?
No, I don't think they're all third world, but in many cases they are third world. They're not good countries. They're very crime-ridden countries. They're countries that don't do a good job. They're countries that don't register from the standpoint of success. And we, frankly, don't need their people coming into our country telling us what to do.
After a deadly shooting near the White House by an Afghan national, US President Donald Trump turned to Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act. A powerful tool that lets him block entry of foreign nationals deemed harmful to US interests. With one proclamation, migration from entire nations or visa categories can be halted. Why use 212F now? Let's connect the dots.
America will never bend and never yield in the face of terror.
For Trump, the move is about symbolism and power. The shooting of 2 National Guard members near the White House gave him a dramatic backdrop to reassert his hardline immigration stance. Section 212F lets him bypass Congress and act unilaterally, a presidential emergency brake on immigration. The Afghan suspect, Ramanullah Lakhanwal, was subdued at the scene. Specialist Sarah Backstrom, 20, died of her wounds, while Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, 24, remains critical. Citing national security, weak foreign vetting, and visa overstay risks, Trump cast the proclamation as urgent protection, calling for a permanent pause on migration from all third world countries.
We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them. America will never bend and never yield in the face of terror.
But who does this sweeping language actually apply to? The tension is clear. Trump's phrase, all third world countries, is broad, outdated, and not recognized in US law, potentially covering most of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Yet DHS pointed to a White House proclamation naming 19 nations with weak screening, poor cooperation, or refusal to accept deported nationals. The list: Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. So while Trump's words cast a global net, enforcement targets these 19. Why use all third world countries? It's political theater, a Cold War era term meant to project toughness and simplicity, resonating with supporters who see migration from poorer nations as a threat. But the vagueness also serves a purpose. It maximizes discretion, letting the administration expand or narrow enforcement at will. In short, the phrase is both rhetoric and a legal shield.
Because the vice president and the president and other leaders in our country were jumping to conclusions about the Afghan community based on the actions of one man. This shooter is solely responsible for this period, right? It is unconscionable that anyone would go and shoot 2 National Guardsmen in our nation's capital. Gun violence is not owned by any one community, right? If gun violence is owned by a community, then we would be shutting down high schools and shutting down young men for shooting up high schools and other locations. I'm really concerned that this is going to be used as a cudgel to cause great harm to the Afghan community that has worked so hard and so long to stand beside the American public.
This is not the first time Section 212F has been used. Presidents of both parties have invoked it for narrower purposes. Ronald Reagan restricted Cuban migration in the 1980s. George H.W. Bush used it against certain Panamanian officials, and Barack Obama applied it to human rights violators. But Trump has used it more aggressively than any predecessor. In 2017, he issued the so-called Muslim ban, initially covering 7 countries: Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. Later revisions dropped Iraq but added Chad, North Korea, and certain Venezuelan officials. By 2018, the US Supreme Court upheld the ban in Trump versus Hawaii, affirming that Section 212F grants the president broad discretion. That ruling gave Trump a green light to expand the tool further. Now, in November 2025, he has stretched it to cover 19 countries, far more than the earlier bans, and across a wider geographic spectrum. But the court's 2018 decision did uphold Trump's earlier travel ban under narrower circumstances. The justices emphasized that the president had provided a facially legitimate and bona fide reason: national security. Critics argue that the current proclamation goes further, targeting all third world countries in rhetoric and 19 nations in practice, without individualized evidence against each. Immigration scholars warn that this could invite new constitutional challenges. The question is whether the president's discretion under 212F is truly unlimited, or whether courts will eventually draw boundaries. That debate is far from settled. And what of those who are already in the United States from these countries?
And as the judge said, this individual is in this country for one reason and one reason alone: because of the disastrous withdrawal from the Biden administration and the failure to vet in any way, shape, or form this individual and countless others. And this administration has taken the rightful step to stop any further allowance of people with this similar background into the country, and we're thankful for that.
Here, the proclamation creates uncertainty. While Section 212F governs entry, it does not automatically strip status from those already admitted. But DHS has signaled a full-scale, rigorous re-examination of immigrants from the 19 countries. That means asylum seekers face indefinite pauses in case adjudication. Over 1 million pending asylum claims could be frozen. Green card holders from these nations may see their approvals re-examined, with some potentially revoked if vetting is deemed insufficient. Visa holders could face heightened scrutiny at renewal or denial of extensions. Students and workers from these countries may find themselves in limbo, unable to travel abroad without risking denial of re-entry. Trump's invocation of Section 212F in 2025 represents both continuity and escalation. Continuity because he is relying on a legal tool he used before, one already blessed by the Supreme Court. Escalation because the scope is far broader, 19 countries framed rhetorically as all third world nations. It underscores the extraordinary power vested in the US presidency over immigration. With a single proclamation, the president can reshape who is allowed to enter, who is scrutinized, and who is left in limbo. Is this truly what the US Congress intended when it wrote Section 212F? Or has presidential discretion been converted into unchecked authority? And it leaves millions of lives hanging in the balance, asylum seekers waiting for decisions, families divided by borders, students uncertain about their futures, workers unsure if their visas will be renewed. So as the dust settles on Trump's latest proclamation, the story of Section 212F is still being written. It is a story of law and power, of rhetoric and reality, of courts and constitutions. It is a story that stretches from Reagan's Cuba restrictions to Trump's Muslim ban, and now to a sweeping halt on migration from 19 countries. Whether the US Supreme Court will once again uphold this expansive use, or whether challengers will succeed in drawing limits, remains to be seen. For now, one thing is clear. Section 212F has become the US president's sharpest instrument in the immigration toolbox. And Trump has wielded it more broadly than anyone before him, reshaping the landscape of US immigration with a single phrase: all third world countries. For the record, the term third world is no longer considered accepted parlance in academic, diplomatic, or development contexts. It's widely seen as outdated, imprecise, and often derogatory. American and Syrian forces carried out a joint series of airstrikes and ground operations targeting weapons storage facilities belonging to ISIS. Between November 24 and November 27, multiple sites across the Rif Damascus province were hit. But why is the US launching operations in Syria again? Let's connect the dots. According to the US Central Command, or CENTCOM, the combined operation destroyed more than 130 mortars and rockets, multiple assault rifles, machine guns, anti-tank mines, and materials used to build improvised explosive devices. In all, 15 distinct sites were dismantled. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper described the operation as essential to ensure the gains made against ISIS are lasting. The strikes were not just a one-off raid. In early November, US forces had helped launch over 22 operations against ISIS in Syria, resulting in 5 terrorists killed and 19 captured. But why is the US once again striking inside Syrian territory? The answer lies in shifting alliances and changing priorities. Until recently, the US regarded Syria as a pariah state. But with the rise of Ahmed al-Sharaa, that stance appears to be changing. Al-Sharaa was once a jihadist commander. In fact, the US placed a $10 million bounty on him. But al-Sharaa has reinvented himself. After leading rebel forces that overthrew Bashar al-Assad in December of 2024, he became Syria's interim leader. The US removed him from its global terrorist blacklist ahead of his November 2025 visit to Washington. Now, during that visit, the US President Donald Trump went all his length to praise him.
The leader of Syria you had earlier, did you come to any agreements today?
Well, I've had an agreement with him. He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him, the new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful, because that's part of the Middle East. We have peace now in the Middle East, first time that anyone can remember that ever happening.
The meeting also resulted in a partial lifting of sanctions, including a 6-month suspension under the so-called Caesar Act. In parallel, Syria signed a political cooperation declaration with the US-led global coalition to defeat ISIS, formally committing to support counter-ISIS measures. If you see from Washington's perspective, partnering with Syria under al-Sharaa serves multiple goals. First, restoring stability in Syria. Second, reducing the influence of hostile actors. And third, and most importantly, preventing ISIS's resurgence. Ahmed al-Sharaa is today the leader of Syria. But his journey to this position was anything but conventional. In the past, he fought as a jihadist, once heading a group aligned to al-Nusra Front, which itself once had ties to Al-Qaeda. He operated under the name Abu Muhammad al-Golani. Captured by US forces in Iraq in the 2000s, he later reappeared in Syria during the civil war. Over time, as rebel groups fractured and alliances shifted, he managed to rise in influence. His group broke with Al-Qaeda in 2016, rebranded as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS. It became one of the most powerful rebel factions in northwest Syria. Al-Sharaa's rebel coalition toppled al-Assad's regime in December 2024 with the conquest of Damascus and other key areas. With Assad gone, international isolation lifted, and Syria needing governance, al-Shara emerged as the interim leader in early 2025. Now 43 years old, he is working to rebrand Syria. He is pushing for reconstruction, foreign investments, and reintegration with the global community. Now, to understand why the airstrikes happened, we need to look back at the story of ISIS. The roots of the group trace to the early 2000s. A jihadist named Abu Musab al-Zarqawi founded a group called Jamaat al-Tawhid wal Jihad, which became active in Iraq after the 2003 US invasion. As sectarian tensions soared, Zarqawi's group evolved into Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Over time, Al-Qaeda in Iraq merged with other insurgent factions and became the Islamic State of Iraq, or ISI. In 2013, as Syria's civil war engulfed the region and the Iraqi state struggled, ISI expanded into Syria. By April 2013, it was operating across borders. Then in June 2014, the group made global headlines. It captured the Iraqi city of Mosul and other territories and declared the establishment of a so-called caliphate. Its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, proclaimed himself Caliph Ibrahim, claiming religious as well as political authority over all Muslims. Overnight, ISIS rose from insurgent militia to self-declared state, ruling large swathes of Iraq and Syria. Under ISIS, areas under its control lived under a harsh, brutal regime. They imposed a strict version of Sharia law. They committed massacres, enslaved and persecuted minorities, notably the Yazidis, and caused massive displacement. A coalition of international and local forces, including the US, many regional governments, and Kurdish and Iraqi forces eventually pushed ISIS back. By late 2017, the declared caliphate had collapsed. ISIS had lost nearly all its territory. The elimination of territorial control did not destroy ISIS entirely. The group fractured, went underground, and turned into a dispersed insurgency and guerrilla network. While it no longer controls cities or borders, it remains active. It launches ambushes, bombings, and kidnappings. It operates sleeper cells in both Syria and Iraq, as well as through affiliates across parts of Africa and Asia. In 2019, US Special Forces raided Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi's hideout in Syria. During the raid, al-Baghdadi killed himself to avoid capture. After his death, ISIS announced a successor, Abu Ibrahim al-Hashmi al-Qureshi. However, intelligence agencies have identified another senior figure, Amir Mohammed Abdul Rahman al-Mawli al-Sabli, as the group's central decision maker. Despite the changes in leadership, the network remains fluid. Its affiliates operate in multiple countries, and its ideology still attracts recruits. In recent months, especially after the political upheaval in Syria following Assad's fall, ISIS has reportedly been trying to regroup. That threat of ISIS reconstituting itself is precisely why US and Syrian forces decided on the November 2025 strikes. Their goal is to destroy remaining weapon stockpiles, dismantle hidden infrastructure, and prevent the group from regaining strength. So, the chapter of ISIS is not over, and the threat still remains. As long as groups like ISIS survive, peace and stability in Syria and the region remain fragile. That's all in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We will see you again in the next episode with more raging issues. This is Mark Lynn signing off. Take care and stay safe.